today on an all-new Dr. Phil.
An attorney convicted of hypnotizing his female clients and then sexually assaulting them.
When I left the courthouse, my bra was undone.
Did he hypnotize this judge as well?
He asked to be alone with me. He was moving the pen back and forth,
saying, follow the pen.
Former clients speak out.
When I left there, time had gone by. This is someone's coming back now.
So what do you think happened? Let's do it.
Good show, everybody. Here we go.
This is a safe place to talk about hard things.
Stand by. We'll count you down.
I'm trying to be an emotional compass and point you in the right direction.
5, 4.
I am not giving up on you. Okay, I want you to imagine with me for a minute having a legal problem. Say, for instance, you're going through a divorce. You go to a meeting with your lawyer, you're sitting there having a conversation, and suddenly everything, well, it just gets foggy. When your head clears, it feels like only 2 minutes have passed, but in reality, hours have gone by. And it gets worse. You realize your hair is ruffled, your clothes are askew, your bra clasp is undone. Well, several women have said that is exactly what happened to them when their divorce attorney, Michael Fine, hypnotized them, and then, while under his spell, sexually assaulted them in his office. Now, you may be saying, no way. This is impossible. Hypnosis is a parlor trick, mumbo jumbo, hocus pocus. It just isn't real. But let me tell you, it was real for these women. And catching Ohio divorce attorney Michael Fine was not easy. That is, until one victim began secretly recording her meetings with Fine, that the nightmare was confirmed. Michael Fine was caught on tape putting one vulnerable female client after another under his hypnotic control and then sexually assaulting them. Take a look.
Tonight, shocking allegations in the case of a local attorney accused of hypnotizing women to have sexual encounters with them.
The legal motion reads like a sexually graphic novel that would turn an average reader 50 shades of red.
Because the conversations and alleged sexual encounters are just so racy and, frankly, appalling. This is probably not a story you want the kids in the room for. This Sheffield Village attorney, Michael William Fine, allegedly recorded in a sting operation, hypnotizing his female client to perform sex acts with him. Fine allegedly told the victim, "I want you to look into my eyes. You're going to feel such attraction and arousal and excitement that you're going to demand that I touch you and you touch me."
2 women first came forward with hypnosis allegations last fall after losing track of time in meetings with the attorney. Michael Fine was taken into custody and formally charged with sexual battery, gross sexual imposition, and kidnapping.
Fine will never, and I mean never, practice law again.
Well, Michael Fine was convicted and sentenced to 12 years in prison. Now today, 2 of his alleged victims are speaking out in an exclusive interview. First, here's Melissa's story of what she says happened to her.
I met attorney Michael Fine when I needed help with custody of my children. Michael Fine and I corresponded mostly on the telephone. I called and I could tell when we had spoken that I was on speakerphone. He asked me what my ex-husband liked to do in bed. I asked him why, and he said that he needed a breakdown of his habits so that he could give it to the judge. He wanted to teach me some techniques to help me relax, something called mindfulness. He would tell me to breathe and count backwards from 10. When we had a trial coming up, I flew to Ohio and I met him at his office. He told me to come alone. When I got there was no one else there. He told me to come back into his office. I sat down. He told me to seem really stressed out. Time did pass and I don't remember anything. I noticed that when I left, my pants were unzipped, they were unbuttoned. I felt that he had done something sexual to me. I clearly had been hypnotized. I had already paid the retainer that he had asked me for, and I was broke, so I pushed my suspicions aside. Another time that I was at the courthouse with Michael Fine, he had told me that I could not be in the same conference room with my daughter, who at the time was 14. I was in the conference room for 5 hours, and I had thought it was only an hour. When I left the courthouse, my bra was undone, and my clothes were askew. He did hypnotize me so that way he could take advantage of me sexually and emotionally. And a month later, Michael Fine got caught.
When Melissa first came and she told me this story, I believed her. There were somewhere between 8 to 10 women that contacted me very early on. They all felt that they had been victimized by Michael Fine. Michael Fine sexually assaulted women without their consent. It is egregious. He's a predator.
He did violate me. He violated my trust, and he violated my children's trust.
Well, Melissa's current lawyer, Laura Mills, joins us today as well. Melissa, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I'm sorry for the circumstance. I wish we were talking about something else. Sure. And Laura, thank you for being here as well. Tell me, what was the first thing that went through your mind that looking back was a red flag that made you think something's not right here?
It was when he was making himself available at midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning. He would call me, he would text me, and it was like, what lawyer do you know that is going to call you that late or text you that late?
Was it all business, or was he being personal with you at that point?
It was business in the beginning of the call. And he quickly went on from that to personal issues.
How did he bridge from legal consult to that sort of more personal psychological world?
Well, he knew that when we talked, I have high blood pressure, and when I get nervous, I talk quick. So he says, listen, this is what I can do. I will help you because I know it's stressful, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you some techniques that will help you relax. So when you go into the courtroom or you go and you talk to the judge or whomever, then people are going to listen to what you have to say.
You needed him to protect your access to your children.
Correct.
And he knew that.
He did.
That was his leverage over you.
Exactly.
You needed him. You had to have him.
Exactly.
And you had paid him all the money you had.
Yes, I did.
This person has got you under their thumb.
Right.
And in a sense, this is a power transaction.
Yes.
He started asking personal questions about your sexual habits, right?
Correct. Yeah.
What was his explanation for that?
Because when we went into court, he would need to give the judge a breakdown showing what my ex-husband's personality was.
And how did he respond when you would push back?
He told me he was the lawyer. He had the law degree. My job was to listen and do what he asked.
Did he ask for graphic details?
Yes, he did. He very much into details.
This is when you believe he had you on the speakerphone, and he was using that for arousal purposes.
Yes, yeah, he was.
Okay, but then you go to his office. When you get there and he starts to do what you experienced as losing time, hypnosis, whatever description, but he would essentially get you in the office and do what? What technique did he use to gain control of you?
He called it mindfulness, is what he called it, about taking deep breaths. And he had a pen, and he would take and he would bring his fingers together into a point, and until there was nothing, he said there was no space between. So once we got to that point, you would feel relaxed.
And at that point, did you experience a loss of awareness?
Yes, I did.
You now know that he said what to you during this time?
He was the greatest lover of all time. And when he spoke with me the next time and he said his trigger word, then it would put me right at that same place as I was right at that moment. Extremely aroused is where he wanted me at.
Right. And were you violated at that point as well?
Yes, at the office. Because I remember going in there, and we're supposed to talk, and I'm supposed to relax, and It was daytime out, and we're done, and it's dark. Where'd it go? Where did the time go?
And did he use this trigger word with you?
Yes.
How many times?
When we spoke on the phone, when I had seen him in person. I knew that at the end when he counted, okay, where did the time go? Now what?
Okay, he would count you out. What was the trigger word?
I don't know.
All right, coming up, if you thought this story couldn't get any more unbelievable, wait until you hear what our next guest has to say. She's a judge and claims that he tried to hypnotize her as well. That's next.
He asked to be alone with me, which I found unusual. Just the two of us. I think he was trying to unethically influence me by hypnotizing me.
And later, you feel like you were given some type of a drug.
When I left there, time had gone by, and I couldn't find my way home. It took me 25 minutes to get there. It took me 2 hours to get home.
So what do you think happened?
I did not kill Stephen.
That's tomorrow.
Since Michael Fine took advantage of me and he hypnotized me, my life, it's not the same as it was before. I have absolutely no trust for anyone. I will not be alone with someone. I don't care who it is. The door has to be open. Someone has to be with me. I've had panic attacks. Michael Fine made my life a living hell.
It is a criminal case with a shocking headline. An attorney convicted of hypnotizing his female clients and then sexually assaulting them. Now, several women claim that after hiring Ohio divorce attorney Michael Fine, they felt foggy, disoriented, and like they had been sexually violated, but yet had no memory of a sexual encounter. Now, after a secret sting operation, the disgraced attorney was exposed and sentenced to 12 years in prison. Now, Judge Lisa Swinsky claims that she also had an encounter in her chambers with Michael Fine that left her chilled to the bone.
I met Mike Fine probably in 2013 or 2014. He was a divorce lawyer. I'm a divorce judge. He asked to be alone with me, which I found unusual, but I had an open door policy, so I was like, okay, Mike, if you want to be alone. And he said, just the two of us. He asked me to follow a pen with my eyes, and we later found out that pen had surveillance camera in it. And he asked me to count backwards from 30. I think he was trying to unethically influence me by hypnotizing me. Hypnosis has dramatically impacted my life for the past 20 years. When I was a student, my former roommate was hypnotizing me in everyday conversations. He had used hypnosis. Hypnosis is a real thing, and it is being used by lawyers. Mike Fine told one of the divorce clients who was in front of my court, don't worry about Judge Swinsky. I can handle her if I can get her alone with me. When I recused myself from Mike Fine's cases, I was accused of having no integrity, basically accused of being nuts. The media thought that I was insane when I claimed that he used hypnosis. It did subsequently come out that Mike Fine indeed was using this technique. Hypnosis is real. It happened to me. It happened to these other women. It was used 20 years ago, and it's still being used today.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Dr. Phil, for doing this show. And,
well, awareness is everything, right?
It
and this just gets stranger by the minute. Tell us about your encounter with this man. He wanted to meet with you in chambers.
Yes.
What was the first thing that he said or did that, in looking back, you think, this is way wrong?
Well, yeah, the first thing was when he admitted to being conversant in hypnosis. And that was, he did this in front of several people. So I should have been alert right then and there to the fact that something was wrong with him. But because something had happened to me 20 years ago and I tried to put it out of my mind, I just blew it off. And he comes in and he had a pen with him and he had me discuss his part of the case. So I listened to his part of the case, and then the other attorney gets to present their part of the case. And she's sitting there listening, I'm sitting there listening, I give him my full undivided attention. When it comes time to talk with her, I turn to her and say, okay, so-and-so, you got 30 seconds. That's it. You got 30 seconds, tell me what you want to tell me. So she started talking. And I just started counting backwards from 30. So 30, 29, 28. I was looking at Mike Fine, and he was doing this thing with him. And I said, Mike, stop that. You're freaking me out. But I kept counting backwards. And then when the 30 seconds was up, I turned to the other lawyer. I said, your time's up. Sorry. You know, it's the end of the settlement conference. And we laughed. That is so unlike me. For me to have blown off another lawyer like that, again, another sign that should have been a red flag for me.
Okay, well, what happened that got you to do that?
I think he had said, you'll give her 30 seconds to talk, and you're not going to listen to her. And that would be my guess.
And when did that happen? When do you think he did that?
I think he probably did that right there at the settlement conference, right there in front of the other attorney. Because if you are not cognizant of those techniques and what is being done, it can be done in front of people. And nobody would have a clue that this covert hypnotic technique was being used. And I think he was just bold enough and audacious enough to do it in front of the other attorney.
You say he knew about some experience you had had with hypnosis previously.
Right. My roommate had bragged, believe it or not, that he had used hypnosis to rape me and a couple other women, 2 other women. I thought he was crazy. I thought he was insane. The first thing I thought was maybe he drugged me and something happened. But I didn't think that hypnosis worked. I didn't believe in it. I went to have a rape kit, found out, indeed, I was probably raped, which was stunning. The detective that I spoke with said, whatever you do, don't tell anybody because they're not going to believe you, and you could end up getting yourself locked up. I got committed.
Really?
It was a 72-hour emergency hospitalization. Ironically, at the time, the university was running advertisements, learn how to hypnotize for fun and profit.
And you said he had a pen.
He did have a pen. I later found out he had surveillance equipment in it, and he was moving the pen back and forth. But I even kind of snapped out of it there and said, you know, you're freaking me out, quit doing that. But it still wasn't enough to know that between what he had said about hypnosis and what he had pulled on me, that he was actually using this.
Okay, so he's in your office with another lawyer.
With another lawyer.
And he's saying, follow the pen.
Yes.
And the other lawyer
doesn't think anything of it.
Doesn't say, what the hell are you two doing?
No, absolutely not.
Michael Fine was secretly recorded by one of his victims. So what exactly did he say to get his clients under his control? Well, we're going to reveal what that is next. No way anybody's going to wave a pen at me. No way anybody's going to have me count backwards and look at the fingers and get me to drop my drawers. And later,
I felt like I had sex, and I just put it out of my head, you know, until everybody started coming forward, because I thought I was crazy all this time.
Disgraced divorce attorney Michael Fine pled guilty to kidnapping and attempted kidnapping charges involving 6 women. So what exactly happened in his law office? And let me tell you, he was talking about this to people. He even talked about the judge to some of his clients. What did he tell you about this judge?
He told me it was a great thing that Lisa Swinsky was the judge that was on my case, because he said that he knew her very well, he knew how to work her, and not to worry about a thing.
Did he show you the pen?
He did. He showed me the pen when we were in the back in the conference room, and he's like, look at this. He says, a friend of mine gave me this pen, and there's a camera in it. He's like, there's equipment. He's like, who would even notice? And he has the pen. And I'm like, my God, there's a camera. There's recording equipment inside of that pen. So when I talked to prosecutors, I told them about it, and they're like, they wouldn't even have looked. They wouldn't even have thought that what was in there.
And what was the purpose of the camera?
I think just to surveil, just to have surveillance video. I think he liked to keep trophies.
There are recordings of Michael Fine hypnotizing his clients according to court records. And I want to talk about some of the things that these recordings contain. I am the teacher, you are my student. I can do it to you with you all the time, can't I? a secret and no one's going to know, right? Life-changing experience. You'll only recollect what we are talking about, your case, until we see each other tomorrow. Do you understand? You will insist to me that I touch you in any way that brings you pleasure. I want you to look into my eyes. You are going to feel such attraction and arousal and excitement that you're going to demand that I touch you and you touch me. Do you understand? Take control. At the count of 3, you won't be able to control yourself. You will remain ravenous, amazingly aroused and excited person, and you will insist that I touch you in any way that brings you pleasure. Do you understand? It was this going over and over and over, and these were the things that were found on the recordings. Yes. When you hear some of these things back that were in the court records, does that bring anything back to you? Do you recall ever hearing anything like that?
Yes, I recall bits and pieces of hearing about that. It infuriates me.
Laura, when he pled to these counts and is a registered sex offender, right?
That's correct. For 25 years, he'll be a registered sex offender.
For 25 years. Judge, in your experience, do people plead to things like this if...
No.
If they didn't do it? I mean, the guy's 57, so this is going to take him to 69.
Yes.
And he's going to be a registered sex offender virtually for the rest of his life.
Correct. And I did criminal defense work before I was a judge. My husband still does criminal defense work. You don't normally plead. There are a lot of times that you might plead when you haven't done anything or that you've done some version of it. But if you're 57 years old, you're not pleading to this type of case that you could have taken to trial, given all of the naysayers, knowing that you're going to do 12 years in prison. So my guess is that there were a lot of other women that he was afraid might come forward, and that might be a good reason to plead and get it over with. That's just my guess.
Yeah. So what is alleged in the civil case?
The civil case has a number of claims in Melissa's case. They sound, some of the counts sound criminal in nature, assault and battery terms that we hear. Intentional infliction of emotional distress is a count that's in there.
And you all have talked about naysayers, and there may be some in the audience here today that just say, this seems unbelievable to me, because people put themselves in the position and say, no way anybody's going to wave a pen at me. No way anybody's going to have me count backwards and look at their fingers and get me to drop my drawers. I mean, that's just, I mean, people are just going to say that it's not going to happen. So what do you say to the naysayers?
It can happen. There are a number of women. They're smart, they're confident, they're intelligent, and it happened.
All right, well, coming up, another alleged victim comes forward for the first time. She claims Fine not only tried to hypnotize her, but says he attempted something even more sinister. That's next.
One day I went to see Mike Fine in his office. Everything was dark, and he invited me to go downstairs. He said, would you like some tea? I was drugged, no doubt.
Our next guest, Debbie, says she also hired Fine to help her with her divorce and claims when he couldn't hypnotize her, he found another way.
Mike Fine was my attorney for 4 years. As my attorney, Mike Fine did a lot of inappropriate things. I'd walk in and he'd come and give me a hug where I felt like he's feeling my breasts. I suffer from severe panic disorder, and Mike Fine told me that he had a solution and talked to me about guided imagery. He would do that over the phone with me. After I got done doing these sessions with him, I would feel floaty kind of sensation, but thoroughly relaxed. One day I went to see Mike Fine in his office. When I arrived, I knew something was strange. The receptionist wasn't there, everything was dark, and he invited me to go downstairs and that we were going to take the meeting down there. He said, would you like some tea? And he went upstairs and made the tea and brought it downstairs, and I drank the tea. The next thing I remember, I was using the restroom, and I had a feeling he was standing outside the door. I remember seeing the pattern of the tile on the floor. I kept fixating on that. I believe when I was in the bathroom, Mike Fine did come in. Although I don't have a memory of it, I think I have some pretty good evidence that he was in there. On the drive home, I was feeling a little sore down there, and I just chalked it up to being the night before with my boyfriend. I was very disoriented, and for the life of me, I could not find my way home. And I 100% believe that I was drugged. No doubt. When this happened, I never reported it. About a year later, my friend called me and she saw him on the news.
An arrest this weekend of that Sheffield Village attorney accused of hypnotizing clients.
I was shocked because all those red flags that I let go were coming up. This really did happen.
Okay, so again, I'm so sorry that you've been through this. Why did you hire this attorney?
I was going through a divorce.
How many times had you seen him when this happened to you to the point that you thought, I don't even know how to get home. Something has happened to me here.
That was on the last particular time I went by myself.
But how many times?
I had been to his office many times, but I was never alone.
Mm-hmm. But then this time, you feel like you were given some type of a drug, right?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. When I left there, time had gone by, and I couldn't find my way home. It took me 25 minutes to get there. It took me 2 hours to get home. I didn't know where I was. I was very confused. I called my now husband and told him that I was lost. He accused me of having sex with him because he had overheard him saying things to me. So much things are coming back now listening to the other girls too, that because I thought I was crazy all this time.
Mm-hmm. How long has it been since this happened to you?
2013 was the episode that I knew something was wrong. When I felt like I had sex, you know, and I just kind of put it off because I had sex the night before. And I just put it out on my head, you know, until everybody started coming forward and I start figuring out all these red flags, you know, that I just missed.
So what do you think happened?
I'm pretty sure that he did something.
How hard was it for you to come here?
You know, and I watch you all the time, and I know what you say to people. And you said, I'm never going to leave you, and you stay with people, and you follow through. And I just thought you were honorable. And that's why I said, I'll do it. It's like, they're tears really of validation and embarrassment. Because this is a story that's hard to believe. Come on, you know.
Have you been self-medicating?
Yes, I have.
Alcohol?
Alcohol.
How much?
Well, it got pretty bad. And then I'm drinking daily. It takes away the pain and you forget. You know, you just don't care anymore. You know?
I care.
Thank you.
We all care. I have some things I want to say to you before the end of the show, because you living like this is not okay with me, and it shouldn't be okay with you. And we're going to talk about that before the end of the show, okay?
Okay.
All right, coming up, the fact that this man was able to hypnotize women without them even realizing it is scary and something that you may never have thought possible. But is it something that you need to worry about? I'm going to explain how this happened, and we're going to speak to a hypnotherapist after the break.
Tomorrow on an all-new Dr. Phil.
You shot my son.
Did her son's best friend pull the trigger?
You left Stefan in a ditch riddled with bullet holes.
This is her son's blood.
I did not kill Stefan.
That's tomorrow.
I'm know many of you are wondering how on earth could this happen. Well, I'm going to explain how it is possible that a woman going to a legal meeting could wind up being under control of someone else, could be passive enough to be sexually assaulted against their will. Now, joining us now is John Sahakian. He is a licensed hypnotherapist based in Los Angeles. So, John, you have devoted your career to hypnotherapy, which is a very valid approach to the intervention of many disorders and management of mental illnesses. Shed some light on this situation so people can understand the transaction that went on here.
I think there's a small percentage of people that this can actually happen to. Most of us can just snap out of it. It's actually a state of amplified awareness. You're very alert, but you're very relaxed at the same time.
To the naysayers that go, I don't believe it can happen, I would never be in that situation, what do you say to those people?
I say it's possible. There is such a thing as hypnoamnesia, where you cannot remember what happened. Very small percentage, but of people. But I would say stay alert and aware, and have someone with you.
What I want people to understand is I don't want people to get caught up in a matter of semantics here, because as you know, having devoted your career to this, that there's no one definition of hypnosis, for example. What we're talking about here is a power transaction, because you're in a context here where there's extreme vulnerability, and these people are being groomed just like a predator, a pedophile would groom a child. And the vulnerability is there, the control is there, the threat is there, the desire to please the person is there, both consciously and subconsciously, for fear of losing their most prized possession, their children. So all of these emotional and psychological factors are going on, and that's a context at which a trust is created, a desire to please is created, leverage and power is created. So there's a whole lot more going on than just a typical hypnotic circumstance that you would deal with in the office. So I don't think you can look at it in a vacuum. I think you have to take everything into account. And when you look at the relational and the environmental and the leverage that's going on, it's a whole different situation, whether you call it hypnosis or grooming, whatever you call it. When all of these things come, you have a perfect storm for a woman caught in their most vulnerable position, and then it's not so hard to understand.
Agreed, absolutely. Very well articulated.
All right. Coming up, the man who defended Michael Fine in his criminal case joins us. What does he say about his disgraced client? That's next. Last month, a married lawyer who hypnotized his female clients and then sexually abused them was sentenced to 12 years after one suspicious woman wore a hidden camera when she met with him. Now, Robert Housel represented Michael Fine in his criminal case, and he joins us now. I just described the situation based on court findings. I suspect you would describe it differently than that, but he did plead. What exactly did he plead to?
He pled to 6 counts out of 21 that were total. 1 kidnapping and 5 attempted kidnappings, and the judge sentenced him to 12 years. That was an agreed plea bargain situation.
Had you gone to trial, what was the defense?
It was probably the most indefensible case I've ever seen. Mr. Fine had been examined and been treating with some mental health professionals. Mr. Fine had some issues in his life that probably led him to do these things. To defendant, we could have cross-examined. Some of the women did not remember a lot of things that happened. An effective cross-examination, you know, might have created a reasonable doubt. I suppose the best answer to your question is to try and create reasonable doubt.
You say this is one of the most indefensible cases that you've had to defend, and
I agree.
He certainly crossed some very serious boundaries, both criminally and ethically. You would agree?
There's no question. Before the criminal charges, the Lorain County Bar Association, that's just outside of Cleveland where this took place, had begun conducting an investigation, and they filed a series of charges against him before the criminal indictments, and he didn't defend that. He resigned from the practice of law with discipline pending, which you are permitted to do.
Will he ever practice law again?
No.
He'll never be...
I mean, he resigned with discipline pending, so technically he could reapply, but it would make no sense for him to do that.
When he did, he'd have to defend all of this.
Yeah, of course. There'd have to be hearings. I don't foresee that happening.
If a woman goes in to see a lawyer and they feel something is going on that's inappropriate, they feel something is crossing the line, they feel uncomfortable, what is their best course of action?
Get up and leave. Go find another lawyer.
But if they've paid a retainer, and I think most people don't know that a lawyer cannot keep a retainer in an onerous fashion if it's demanded back and they have not done the work to keep that retainer. They can't keep that ethically if they haven't done the work.
You're exactly right. In bar associations and in Ohio, we have an arm of the Ohio Supreme Court called Disciplinary Council that hears situations like that. This lawyer did this, you shouldn't do that. The lawyer should give the money back, the retainer back, and immediately resign from any representation in the case, and quite frankly, hope nothing else happens.
So they do have remedies?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I think that's good for people to know. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. Earlier, I told Debbie I wasn't going to leave her behind. I have more to say to her and Melissa when we come back. The main thing that, you know, I always try to focus on is this. You know, the past is over. The future hasn't happened yet. The only time is now. You know, not even God can change what has happened. But what you can do is make choices about where you go from here. I always tell people that when you come to the Dr. Phil show, when you sit down with me and we say goodbye, that's not the end of our relationship, it's the beginning. And there's something that I want you to do. One of the resources that we use here that I have an awful lot of confidence in is a resource called OnSite. And OnSite is a terrific organization. It's located in Tennessee on a beautiful ranch, and they do very intense workshops for people that have been through trauma. I've made arrangements for you to go there and spend the time necessary for you to find yourself and get yourself back where you need to be for you and for your family.
Thank you.
And I want to make that as a gift to you. And I want to talk to you as well. We didn't talk much about this, and I have not diagnosed you, and in order to do so, I would have to go through a whole lot of things that I haven't done here. But I'm going to tell you what would be on my short list of considerations. One would be a very acute anxiety neurosis, panic attacks, post-traumatic stress disorder, and a chronic depression.
Correct.
I would roll all of those things up, and that would be on my short list of considerations if I was going to start diagnosing you. And that would be before I got to alcoholism. I want to send you to a dual diagnosis treatment program. Okay. And when I say dual diagnosis, you have to stop self-medicating. So what I want to do is send you to the Hanley Center, which is part of the Origins behavioral program. And these are folks that deal with gender-specific dual diagnosis treatment to get you where you need to go. We're going to start by evaluating you neurologically, hormonally, biochemically, psychologically, and let's get you back in control of your life.
Oh, that'd be great.
Will you immerse yourself in it? Okay. Fair enough? Okay, fair enough? Okay. All right. I want to thank all of my guests today, especially Melissa and Debbie, for having the courage to tell their story. A special thanks to Onsite and Origins Behavioral Health Care.